Michael, Michael, how can you do this to me? Selling human parts? Michael, I said, were you selling human parts? Tell me it's not true, she implored, her eyes searching his face for any sign of the man she once believed she knew. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair, the weight of her gaze too much to bear. Ada, you've got it all wrong, he began, his voice shaky as he attempted to mask his desperation with a veneer of calm. It's not what you think. I was just trying to facilitate research. He didn't finish what he was saying, and the air was shattered by the sudden wail of police sirens. The long, winding driveway to Michael and Ada's mansion became a blur of activity as two police cruisers skidded to a halt, their lights casting blue and red flashes across the elegant facade. Uniformed officers stepped out swiftly, their boots crunching on the gravel as they made their way to the grand front doors. Seconds later, his house was surrounded by the SWAT team. Things were happening so fast for Ada, all she remembered was a policeman saying, "Mr. Michael, we need you to come with us. You are being placed under arrest for allegations of illegal organ trafficking," the leading officer declared, his voice firm and devoid of emotion. Michael's reaction was immediate and visceral. "First of all, it's doctor. There must be some mistake," he stammered, his voice rising in pitch as he stepped back, inadvertently knocking over a vase. It shattered on the marble, the sound echoing dramatically as if to underline the gravity of the moment. Ada, witnessing the scene from the bottom of the staircase, felt a cold dread settle over her. She watched, frozen, as the officers stepped inside, their presence filling the opulent space. Michael turned to her, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and disbelief. "Ada, please, tell them they're wrong," he pleaded, his usual composure crumbling. But before Ada could respond, the officers moved forward. One placed a firm hand on Michael's shoulder. "Please do not resist, sir," he instructed calmly. Michael, however, instinctively pulled away, his movements desperate. "I've done nothing wrong," he protested loudly, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. The officer, professional and unyielding, took hold of Michael's arms and deftly handcuffed him. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law," he intoned, reciting the Miranda rights as he guided Michael towards the door. Ada stood in silence as the father of her children was handcuffed. She couldn't tell what she was feeling. As Michael was led out the door, their eyes met briefly, a silent exchange fraught with a storm of unspoken words and feelings left unexpressed. The officers escorted Michael to one of the waiting cruisers, his resistance futile against their trained efficiency. As the car door shut with a final thud, enclosing him inside, Ada turned to face the house help, standing tall with a calm but distant expression. She thought, "At least the kids weren't here to witness this." The night air was suddenly chillier as she closed the door behind her, the sounds of the departing police cars marking the end of an era in their lives. Welcome to our channel, where we read African short stories written by us for you. Please enjoy and subscribe and leave us a comment of where you are watching from. Now, let's begin where it all started. In the vibrant heart of Lagos, twins Ada and Ava had forged an inseparable bond from the moment they were born. As children, their parents often found themselves negotiating with two giggling girls who insisted on sharing everything from their meals to their dreams. Each night, they whispered secrets into the late hours, reluctant to fall asleep in their own beds. Their unity was so profound that their adolescence was marked by shared friends and mirrored interests, a testament to their closeness. However, the paths of the twins began to diverge when they chose different fields of study at the University of Zaramba. Ada embraced the precision and challenge of medicine, while Eva was drawn to the structured arguments and justice of law. Their studies required them to live in separate hostels, introducing a physical distance that had never existed before. Despite this separation, their connection remained strong through frequent phone calls, where they shared both mundane details and deeper concerns. During these formative university years, Ada met Michael in medical school. Their relationship began contentiously. Michael's laughter and demeanor instantly rubbed Eva the wrong way. Eva's instinctive distrust of Michael was dismissed by others as mere sibling jealousy, a theory Ada reluctantly considered as her affection for Michael deepened. The sisters faced another turning point when their father passed away, leaving them the family house in Lagos. While Eva wanted to preserve their childhood home as a cherished memory, Ada, influenced by her now husband Michael's practical outlook, argued for selling the property. They needed the funds, Ada insisted, to invest in Michael's burgeoning clinic, a venture that promised a stable future for her new family. The dispute over the house strained their relationship, marking the first significant rift between them. A few days ago, Ada's phone buzzed insistently on the coffee table, the screen lighting up with Mama flashing across it. With a deep breath, she answered, her voice tentative. "Hello, Mama." "Ada, my dear, you must go and check on Eva." Her mother's voice quivered with urgency over the line. "I haven't heard from her in days, and I'm worried sick. Please, go to her apartment and see if she's all right." Ada's heart sank. She held the phone a little tighter, a lump forming in her throat, as she realized she didn't even know where her sister lived anymore. The distance between them had grown too wide, filled with unsaid words and unresolved disputes. "I'll see what I can do, Mama," Ada managed to say, her voice barely hiding her turmoil. She couldn't bring herself to confess that she had no idea where her twin, her other half, had made her home. The admission felt like it would only add to her mother's distress and deepen the chasm that had already split her family apart. Years later, with their mother as the remaining thread holding them together, Ada found herself drawn back into the complexities of Eva's world, not just out of sibling duty, but from a deep, enduring love. Underneath the surface of her seemingly perfect life, she was consumed by worry for Eva, who had mysteriously disappeared. Ada knew that the key to finding her sister lay in unraveling the tangled web of her last known actions. But first, she needed to find where she lived. Ada stepped cautiously through the throngs at the Oshodi market, her heart pounding in sync with the chaotic rhythm around her. Lagos bustled with a vibrancy that could overwhelm even its lifelong residents. And today, disguised as her sister Eva, Ada felt each pulse of the city more acutely than ever. She maneuvered through narrow aisles crowded with vendors shouting over one another, their voices a tapestry of promises and pleas woven into the humid air. The market was a labyrinth of colorful stalls, each overflowing with fabrics, spices, and handcrafted wares. Ada's eyes flickered nervously behind sunglasses too large for her face, a feeble disguise for the twin sister nobody knew she was impersonating. As Ada, the wealthy wife of a prominent businessman, she had frequented upscale shopping districts where the chaos was managed and the faces were always familiar. But Eva, her estranged twin, had moved in different circles, her world painted in starker tones, her battles fought on rougher terrain. Since Ava's disappearance, Ada had been haunted by the chasm between their lives, a divide now hers to bridge. Her mission was clear yet daunting. Retrace Ava's last known days, gather any clues available from those who knew her best. But as Ada delved deeper into Ava's world, she couldn't shake off the discomfort that came from stepping into shoes so worn by hardship. A vendor, noticing Ada's hesitant demeanor, waved her over with a toothy grin. "Sister, come see. Best prices for you today," he called out, assuming her to be just another customer. Ada approached, her guise as Ava making her a ghost in her own skin. She feigned interest in the beaded necklaces displayed before her, using the moment to scan the faces around. None returned her scrutiny, all too wrapped up in their own bartering. "I'm actually looking for someone," Ada ventured, her voice lower than usual, edged with Ava's familiar bluntness. "Who might that be, sister?" the vendor asked, his curiosity piqued as he handed her a necklace, which she pretended to examine. "A woman named Ava," Ada said, watching closely for a flicker of recognition, a sign that she was in the right place. The mention of her sister's name felt like an invocation, a secret spell cast in broad daylight. The vendor paused, his expression unreadable, for a moment before he shrugged nonchalantly. "Many faces pass through here, sister. Maybe I see her, maybe not." Ada nodded, not expecting much. She was about to turn away when another voice called out from behind her, tinged with surprise. "Ava, are you looking for Ava? What do you want with her?" Turning, Ada met the eyes of a young woman, her face marked by cautious interest. There was something in her gaze that suggested she knew more than she let on. "I'm her sister," Ada replied, the lie tasting bitter on her tongue. "I need to find her. It's important." The young woman eyed her skeptically, then nodded slowly. "Follow me. We need to talk somewhere private." As they walked away from the bustling market, Ada felt a mixture of fear and relief. She was finally on a trail, one that promised answers, but also hinted at dangers lurking just beneath the surface. The masquerade was in full swing, and Ada, caught between worlds, knew there was no turning back. Ada followed the young woman through a maze of narrow, twisting alleys, each turn taking her further from the familiarity of her own life and deeper into Ava's. The sun beat down mercilessly, casting stark shadows that seemed to mirror Ada's growing apprehension. They arrived at a small cafe tucked away behind an unassuming door, its interior a sharp contrast to the vibrant chaos of the market. Inside, the air was cooler, the ambience subdued. The woman gestured for Ada to take a seat at a secluded table before ordering 2 cups of strong Zobo tea from the waiter. Ada sat, her nerves taut, as she took in the woman's features. She had sharp, observant eyes and a posture that spoke of resilience. She introduced herself as Nia, a close friend of Ava's from their university days. "So, you're Ava's sister," Nia began, her tone mixing suspicion with a hint of curiosity. "Funny, she never mentioned having a twin." Ada stiffened, the remark hitting closer to home than she anticipated. "We grew apart," she admitted, twisting her hands nervously in her lap. "But I need to find her. She hasn't called Mama in 5 days and Mama is getting worried." "She's never gone a day without speaking to Mama." Nia watched her for a long moment, eyes narrowing slightly as if trying to decipher the truth of Ada's words. Finally, she sighed, leaning back in her chair. Ava was involved in something big, something dangerous. She was always trying to fix things, make them right for everyone else. It's like she felt responsible for the world. The words struck a chord in Ada, Responsibility was a theme that seemed to echo around her, a persistent reminder of the power and consequences of one's choices. Eva had always been the one to plunge headfirst into challenges, driven by a need to effect change, while Ada had taken a backseat, her life choices dictated by comfort and convention. Nia's voice pulled her from her thoughts. She was investigating some suspicious activities tied to a few high-profile figures in the city. I warned her to be careful, that she was treading on dangerous ground. Ada felt a cold shiver trace her spine. The implications of Nia's words were clear and terrifying. Eva's disappearance wasn't a simple case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was the result of her relentless pursuit of justice. "Do you believe someone wanted to silence her?" Ada asked, the weight of her sister's potential fate settling heavy on her shoulders. "It's possible," Nia replied grimly. "Eva was exposing secrets that could ruin people, and very powerful people. And now you're here, asking questions in her place. You need to be careful, Ada. You're playing a dangerous game." The conversation left Ada reeling. The reflection of her choices and the stark contrasts between her life and Eva's were painfully clear. She had chosen safety and security at the expense of authenticity and courage. But now, faced with her sister's mysterious and perilous legacy, Ada realized it was time to step out from the shadows of complacency. If she were to honor Eva and find the truth, she would need to embrace the responsibility she had long evaded. The struggle for justice was now hers to bear as well, and the path forward was fraught with risks she had never imagined taking. Nia gave Ada the address of Eva's apartment. As Ada navigated the narrow, crowded streets to Eva's apartment, she felt the gulf between her world and Eva's widening with every step. Her mind replayed the luxurious scenes of her own life, the opulent dinners, the glittering social events, the expansive, well-appointed home she shared with her husband. In stark contrast, Eva's world was one of cramped spaces, simple meals, and the constant buzz of communal living that left little room for privacy or peace. The transition was jarring. Ada had never realized how insulated she had been from the harsher realities many faced daily. As she walked, she reflected on their childhood, on how two lives that had started from the same point had diverged so drastically. They were twins, identical in appearance, but somewhere along the line, their paths had forked, guided by unseen forces and choices made in silent moments. Eva had always been the more adventurous twin, the one who questioned, who rebelled, who sought to make a mark on the world. Ada, in contrast, had sought stability and comfort, perhaps too quickly finding solace in the affections of a wealthy suitor who promised her a golden life free from hardships. Ada stood outside Eva's apartment building, her heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and determination. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the busy street, but her focus was entirely on what lay ahead. She adjusted her scarf and approached the building manager's office, rehearsing her story one last time. The door to the manager's office was propped open, a welcome sign that made her task slightly less daunting. Inside, the manager, a middle-aged man named Mr. Okiki, was shuffling through some paperwork. He looked up as Ada entered, his expression one of mild curiosity. "Good evening, Mr. Okiki," Ada began, her voice slightly higher than usual due to her nerves. "I'm so sorry to bother you at this hour." Mr. Okiki smiled politely. "Oh, hello, Eva. How can I help you today?" Ada took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I'm actually Eva's sister, Ada, I'm supposed to meet her here, but I seem to have misplaced my keys to her apartment. Ava isn't picking up her phone, and I'm quite worried. Could you help me get in?" Mr. Okeke eyed her with a mix of suspicion and concern. "You are Ava's twin? You must be identical because I thought you were Ava, but I can tell your voice is slightly different." "Yes, I don't visit often," Ada admitted, trying to sound as distressed as possible. "Our schedules never seem to align. But she's expecting me. We were supposed to have dinner together. She must be asleep or in the shower, as she's not answering her phone." The manager continued to scrutinize her for a moment longer before he sighed, the lines of his face softening. "All right, I understand. Family emergencies happen. Just this once, I'll let you in. But please ask Ava to come see me tomorrow. I need to confirm this visit with her." "Of course, Mr. Okeke. I'll make sure she comes by," Ada said gratefully, her relief palpable. Mr. Okeke grabbed a set of keys from a labeled drawer and stood up. "Follow me, please," he said, leading the way to Ava's apartment. As they walked down the corridor, Ada's thoughts raced. She was so close to entering Ava's private world, to discovering clues that could lead to understanding her disappearance. The weight of her deception weighed heavily on her, but the potential to uncover the truth about Ava's situation propelled her forward. Mr. Okeke unlocked the apartment door, opening it with a gentle push. "Here you go," he said, handing her the keys with a stern look. "Make sure Ava gets these back to me tomorrow." "Thank you so much, Mr. Okeke. I really appreciate your help," Ada said, stepping into the dimly lit apartment. As the door closed behind her, Ada felt a chill of anticipation. The apartment was quiet, the silence speaking volumes. Now inside, her mission could truly begin. She was one step closer to unraveling the mystery of her sister's disappearance, fueled by a blend of fear, hope, and the urgent need to find Ava before it was too late. Now standing in the dim lights of Ava's living room, Ada felt a wave of alienation wash over her. She looked around at the modest furnishings, the stacks of books and papers, the photos of Ava with various groups of people, all smiling, all engaged. It was clear Ava had carved out a meaningful existence, one filled with purpose and passion, something Ada felt painfully absent in her own life. As she sifted through Ava's things, Ada found a drawer filled with community projects proposals, grant applications, and thank you letters from locals who had benefited from Ava's advocacy. It was evidence of a life vigorously lived, of battles fought for the underdog, of sleepless nights spent planning and plotting for change. Ava's dedication to her causes was evident in every handwritten note, every saved document, every photograph. Tucked between the pages of a notebook, Ada discovered a folder. On top was a note. "They know about the investigation. Lay low. Trust no one." The handwriting was undoubtedly Ava's. The slant and pressure of the pen familiar to Ada from years of shared childhood notes and secrets. The weight of those 3 sentences bore down on Ada as she held the paper in trembling hands. Ada flipped through the folder, her eyes scanning the dense network of communications between Ava and a fellow attorney. Each page was laden with meticulous details about organ trafficking, revealing a sinister clarity in their operation. The documents were filled with chilling lists and timelines that read more like corporate logistics than anything pertaining to human medicine. Highlighted passages caught Ada's attention immediately. Pay for hotel, harvest kidney, call standby doctor, blood type, call client, confirm money in account, proceed kidney transfer. These lines stark and bare, formed a gruesome flowchart that mapped out the illicit process step by step. Around these cold clinical phrases, Eva had scribbled a series of urgent questions in the margins. Are these dates consistent with missing person reports? How can this be legal? Her handwriting conveyed a frantic need for answers. Beneath this, names were underlined, some repeatedly, tying them to specific actions and dates. This was far from a standard legal discussion. It was a harrowing look behind the curtain of a dark business veiled by the semblance of medical legitimacy. The correspondence between the lawyers laid bare a network that exploited the trust placed in healthcare, turning what should have been a sanctuary into a marketplace for human despair. Eva's annotations and the urgent tone of her queries underscored the gravity of her discovery and her determination to expose the truth hidden beneath the polished surface of professional legality. As Ada paced the length of Eva's cramped living room, every shadow seemed menacing, every creak of the old building a signal of lurking danger. The message's final warning, "Trust no one," echoed in her mind, amplifying her isolation. Ada realized that her masquerade as Eva could be a shield or a target, depending on how closely people were watching. Determined and shaken, Ada knew for sure Eva's life was in danger, and she needed to continue Eva's work to bridge the gap between their worlds. Ada pondered the implications of the message. Her sister's words were a stark warning. Eva had uncovered something so significant that it made her fear for her safety. What had started as a search for an absent sister was morphing into a dangerous investigation into corruption and malfeasance that possibly implicated some of the city's most powerful figures. As she lay next to Michael, tossing and turning, with dawn breaking, Ada made a decision. She couldn't tell Michael or go to the police. Well, not yet. Not when she couldn't be sure of who was involved. She had lied to Michael about her day yesterday. After all, he never liked Eva and didn't want to tell him yet about the call from Mama. Instead, she needed to gather more information, follow the threads Eva had left behind, and build a clearer picture of the network of corruption Eva was trying to expose. The danger was real, and the stakes were life itself. But the path to finding Eva and unraveling the truth was now irrevocably Ada's to walk. The fear that gripped her was palpable, but so was the resolve. Ada was no longer just searching for her sister, she was fighting for her. Ada plunged into the heart of her investigation with a determination that bordered on obsession. Each day was spent tracing Eva's last known actions, piecing together the chilling tapestry of the organ trafficking network that Eva had stumbled upon. Each day, she woke up and kissed Michael before he left for work, never letting on what she was doing during the day. As soon as he left, she left as well. One afternoon, Ada found herself in a dimly lit cafe, sitting across from a jittery informant who claimed to have direct links to the trafficking ring. The informant, a small-time criminal named Femi, glanced nervously around before speaking in hushed tones. "Listen, I don't have much time," Femi whispered, his eyes darting to the door every few seconds. "The people involved, they are not just street thugs. They are high up, doctors, politicians, law enforcement. You get too close and they'll notice." Ada leaned in, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "I need to know how my sister fits into all this. Was she onto them?" Femi nodded, gulping down his ginger tea as if it could calm his nerves. "Yeah, she was onto something big. She kept talking about bringing down some big players. That's why she's gone, isn't it? They knew she was too close." Ada's hands clenched under the table. "Do you know who was the last person she met with? Any names, places, Anything? Femi hesitated, then scribbled something on a napkin, sliding it across to her. This is all I can tell you. Be careful, Ada. These people play for keeps. Grabbing the napkin, Ada read the scribbled address, her resolve hardening. She stood up, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and fury. Thank you, Femi. This isn't just about finding Ava anymore. It's about stopping them. As she left the cafe, the gravity of her mission settled around her like a cloak. Every clue she uncovered about the dark world of organ trafficking pulled her deeper into danger. But there was no turning back. Ava's life and the lives of countless others depended on her courage to expose the truth and confront the shadowy figures behind this horrific trade. Each step forward was a step into the unknown. But Ada knew that the only way out was through. Now, she just needs to locate where evidence for Project Genesis was. As the sky darkened and Ada walked the busy streets back to Ava's apartment, she felt a chilling sense of being followed. Quickening her pace, she ducked into a crowded cafe and sat at the back, her back to the wall. From her bag, she pulled out the crumpled note once more, studying it under the dim light. Her sister's plea for secrecy was no melodrama. It was a lifeline thrown across the divide of their disparate lives. Ada sat on Ava's chair, spreading out the documents again, adding up what Femi had said. She now had the final piece of the puzzle. The investigation her sister had been conducting revealed a horrifying pattern. Multiple clinics across Lagos were involved in an intricate organ trafficking network. As she connected the dots, her blood ran cold. Several of these transactions had links to high-end medical facilities, including— her hands trembled as she read the details— Michael's own clinic. The realization struck her like a physical blow. All those late-night calls Michael claimed were emergencies. The suspicious cash transactions she'd glimpsed in their joint account. His insistence on selling Ava's childhood home for clinic expansion. Everything took on a sinister new meaning. She remembered Ava's persistent questions about Michael's business practices. Questions Ada had dismissed as mere jealousy. Now she understood why her sister had been so concerned. Ava hadn't disappeared. She'd been silenced because she was close to exposing the truth. She went home but could barely sleep. She felt like she was sleeping with a stranger, but she knew exactly what she would do tomorrow. As usual, Michael got ready for work, kiss on cheek, and he left. Ada rarely, if ever, went into Michael's home office. She just had no business going there, and neither did she go snooping. But today was the day. There was a cabinet that was labeled Business Archives, but it was locked. With her heart pounding, she pried open the drawer with a crowbar, the metal screeching under her force. Inside, she discovered a stack of meticulously organized folders. Her hands trembled as she extracted one labeled Project Genesis. It was heavy with documents, emails, and, most chillingly, photographs. There were clinical before and after shots of surgeries, none of which appeared legal or ethical. Ada flipped through the documents, her eyes widening with each page turn. There, in a series of email exchanges, was Michael's name, alongside dates and financial transactions. These matched up eerily with the disturbing news stories she had heard over the years. Stories of individuals who had been found abandoned in hotel rooms or by the roadside, their bodies desecrated, organs harvested for black market sales to the highest bidders. He even had newspaper clippings of the stories. "No, this can't be," she murmured, her voice a blend of disbelief and rising horror. The room felt colder. She could hear her heart pumping hard, punctuating her dreadful discovery. Her breath caught as she found a handwritten note in Michael's familiar script, nestled between the pages. "Ensure full discretion. Remember what's at stake." The intimacy of his handwriting, once so familiar and now so alien, struck her with a raw, physical pain. Ada sank to the floor, papers scattering around her. "How could you?" she whispered into the void, her voice cracking. Tears blurred her vision, not just for the betrayal, but for the lives cruelly snatched away and sold in pieces. But as the initial shock faded, a fierce resolve crystallized within her. Ada gathered the papers, stuffing them into her bag. "You won't get away with this, Michael. I'll make sure of it," she declared, her voice now steady, hardened by resolve. The evidence in her hands wasn't merely proof. It was a call to action, a beacon that lit her path forward. This was no longer just a personal betrayal. It had become a moral crusade. She would bring Michael to justice, not just for herself, but for all the voiceless victims ensnared in his monstrous trade, ensuring that their stories ended not just in tragedy, but in a fight for justice. Ada hurriedly left Michael's office, and in what felt like the darkest hour of her ordeal, Ada sat alone in the quiet sanctuary of her living room, the world outside muted and distant. Surrounded by the dark, she found herself caught in a tsunami of emotions. The loftiness of their estate, the security guards at the gates, and the luxury cars. These all seemed part of a facade that masked darker truths. Ada's comfort had been underwritten by the silence of those who dared not speak against her husband's business practices. The revelation was a bitter pill, forcing Ada to confront her complicity in enjoying the fruits of questionable endeavors. Her body started to shiver. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Her luxury, her comfort, her entire world was possibly built on people's kidneys, livers, and lungs. The guilt that had been simmering within her began to boil over. Can she really turn a blind eye to the sources of their wealth? Can she consciously ignore it to maintain her comfortable life? There is no way. But what about the biblical teachings on marriage and fidelity? For better or for worse, she whispered into the silence, her voice trembling as she pondered the weight of her wedding vows against the stark reality of Michael's betrayal. What about the kids? Growing up with no father, whether he goes to jail or divorce, what will people say? What will they think? We were supposed to fly to Dubai next month for the couple's retreat. She paced the room slowly, each step heavy with doubt and fear. The family photos on the mantle mocked her with memories of happier times, the same times now poisoned by the truth of Michael's actions. Ada stopped in front of these images, her hand hovering over a photo taken on a sunny day that felt like a lifetime ago. "How could you betray us like this, Michael?" she asked the smiling image, her heart aching with grief and anger. The enormity of what lay ahead weighed on her. She thought about the biblical parables of justice and righteousness, wondering how they could guide her in such a complex, heart-wrenching situation. "Am I betraying Ava if I stay silent?" she questioned aloud, the name of her estranged sister evoking a pang of guilt. Ava, who had always fought for the truth, now possibly endangered by the very man Ada had vowed to stand beside. Sinking onto the sofa, Ada's thoughts turned to the potential loss of her comfortable lifestyle, the safety of her children, and the well-being of her aging mother. "What am I risking?" she murmured, her mind racing through scenarios of upheaval and danger. The stakes were immense, not just for her, but for her entire family. Her internal debate was abruptly interrupted by the buzz of her phone. Ada eyed it warily, a lifeline that both terrified and beckoned. It buzzed again, insistent. Wiping tears from her cheeks, she reached for the device, the screen illuminating a message from an unknown number. Fight for justice. If you hide a crime, you are part of it too. The words struck a chord deep within her. Ada typed back hesitantly. Who is this? Her heart held a mixture of fear and a flicker of hope. The reply came quickly. A friend. Someone who knows the truth about Michael. Someone who believes in justice as Ava does. Ada felt a surge of strength as she read the words. Though the path was fraught with danger, the message was a beacon of support, a reminder that her fight was just. She stood up, her resolve hardening. For my children, for Mama, for every promise in the scriptures about truth prevailing, I must do this, she vowed quietly, her voice gaining steadiness. Turning back to the mantle, she faced the photo of Michael again. I vowed for better or for worse, but I also vowed to do what's right, she affirmed, her decision clear. I will see this through, not just for me, but for Ava, for our children, and for all those harmed by this darkness. As the day deepened around her, Ada's despair transformed into a fierce determination. No longer merely a betrayed wife, she became a crusader for justice, armored with her faith and supported by unseen allies. She prepared herself for the challenges ahead, fortified by the conviction that she was on the right path, a path that, though perilous, was righteous and true. Ada knew she had to act swiftly yet cautiously. The evidence she had uncovered was damning and time was of the essence, but her approach needed to be meticulous to ensure her safety and achieve justice. Her heart pounded with the gravity of the step she was about to take, knowing it would irrevocably change everything. First, she dialed a trusted friend, a police detective she'd met during a community safety workshop. He had always been approachable and professional, qualities that now seemed like a beacon in her turmoil. Detective Sanu, it's Ada, she whispered into the phone when the call connected. I need to meet with you. It's urgent and it's about my husband. There was a brief pause. Ada, are you safe? Can you talk? Detective Sanu's voice was low and concerned. I am safe for now, Ada replied, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. But we need to meet somewhere private. I have evidence of something very serious. Understood, the detective responded. Let's not discuss it over the phone. Meet me at the cafe on 5th Street in 1 hour. It's quiet this time of night. Ada agreed, her mind racing as she prepared for the meeting. She carefully gathered all the documents and digital evidence she had compiled, placing them in a nondescript folder. Every movement was calculated, from the clothes she wore to the way she would drive to the cafe, taking a route that avoided the main roads. As she drove through the deserted streets, her thoughts were a mix of fear and resolve. She went over her plan again and again, ensuring she had covered every angle. The cafe was nearly empty when she arrived, the few late afternoon patrons absorbed in their own worlds. Detective Sanu was already there, seated in a shadowed corner. Ada! He greeted her, standing briefly. His expression was serious as he motioned for her to sit. She handed him the folder without preamble. Here is part of it. I've taken as little as I could, so he won't notice it. Michael's involved in something, in organ trafficking. Detective Sanu's eyes narrowed as he carefully reviewed the documents Ada had brought, each page adding to the gravity of the situation. This is significant, Ada, he said, his voice low and filled with urgency. He paused, his expression darkening with each piece of evidence he absorbed. Abruptly, he took out his phone and quickly dialed a number. Agent Martins, we have him. The evidence just walked through my door. Sanu spoke into the phone, his voice tense but controlled. He listened intently for a moment, nodding as he held the receiver tightly. Yes, I understand the risks. We've been close before, and I know what happened to the others." After ending the call, he turned back to Ada, his demeanor serious. "Ada, we've been on his trail for years. Every time we get close, our efforts are somehow sabotaged. Officers involved have either died under mysterious circumstances or resigned abruptly. It's dangerous." He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "What time does Michael usually come home?" he asked, his tone implying the urgency of timing their next moves precisely. Ada, caught slightly off guard by the directness, replied, "Around 7 p.m. most days." "Why?" "Here's what we need to do," Detective Sanu explained quickly, outlining the plan. "Go home and prepare everything as you normally would. Cook dinner, act as if everything is normal. We can't tip him off. It might alert his henchmen." He paused, giving Ada a moment to absorb the gravity of her role. "We need to move swiftly because Michael is a dangerous man. He's well connected, and if he senses anything off, it could jeopardize everything. We'll have officers discreetly in place around your house by the time he arrives. This needs to be coordinated perfectly. There's no margin for error." Ada nodded, her mind racing with the implications of what she was about to do. Despite the fear, a steely resolve settled over her. "I understand," she said firmly. "I'll do exactly as you've instructed." Detective Sanu gave her a reassuring nod. "You're doing the right thing, Ada. We'll protect you every step of the way. Just make sure everything appears normal until we can secure him." As Ada left the cafe, the cool night air felt sharper, filled with the electric tension of impending action. She was no longer just a bystander in her own life. She was now a pivotal player in a dangerous game of justice and retribution. Her heart raced with the dual forces of fear and determination, but she was ready to play her part to the end. Ada nodded, feeling a weight lift slightly at his words, but knowing the road ahead would be fraught with danger. "Thank you, Detective. I just want to stop him before anyone else gets hurt." Detective Sanu assured her once more, "We'll do everything we can. You did the right thing coming to us." The cool night air felt different on her skin, crisp and somehow lighter. She had set in motion events that could not be undone, stepping into a role she never imagined for herself. The whistleblower, the protector, the seeker of justice. Despite the dangers that lay ahead, she felt fortified by her purpose and the support of the law. Now, it was a waiting game, and she was ready to play her part to the end. Ada had spent the afternoon preparing Michael's favorite meal, the kitchen filling with the familiar scents of jollof rice and fried plantains. The rhythm of her cooking was punctuated by the simmering tension that coursed through her veins. Each stir, each taste was a reminder of the facade she was upholding, a facade that would soon crumble. As the clock struck 7 p.m., the sound of Michael's car pulling into the driveway sent a jolt of adrenaline through Ada. She quickly checked her appearance in the mirror, smoothing her blouse and forcing a smile. The door opened and Michael stepped in, his face lighting up at the comforting smells greeting him. "Smells wonderful, darling," Michael said cheerfully, hanging up his coat and walking over to peck Ada on the cheek. "Seems like you're in a good mood today." Ada returned his smile with a practiced ease. "Just thought we'd have a nice dinner together," she said, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "How was your day?" "Busy as always," Michael replied, settling down at the dining table. "But coming home to this makes it better." As they began to eat, Ada watched Michael over the rim of her glass, her mind racing with the plan laid out by Detective Sanu. She needed to keep Michael calm and unsuspecting. Their casual dinner conversation continued, with Ada nodding and smiling at all the right moments. Then, her phone buzzed discreetly in her pocket. She took her cell phone out of her pocket to check it. She read the message from Detective Sanu. We're in position. Proceeding in 5. Heart hammering. Ada returned to the dining room, her resolve stealing her. "Michael, there's something we need to discuss," she began, her voice calm but firm. Michael looked up, his expression shifting from contentment to curiosity. "What's on your mind? I knew this meal was for something. How much do you need?" "Anything for you, babe." Ada took a deep breath, locking eyes with him. "It's about your business. I know, Michael. I know about the organ trafficking." Michael's fork clattered to his plate, his demeanor instantly changing. "Ada, what are you talking about?" he asked, his voice tinged with a sharp edge. "I've seen the evidence," Ada continued, her voice unwavering. "The documents, the photos. How could you?" Michael's face hardened, his eyes narrowing. "Ada, you need to be very careful about what you're saying. This isn't something to joke about." "I'm not joking, Michael. I know everything. And so do the police," Ada declared, standing her ground as she saw the confusion and fear begin to dawn on Michael's face. "Michael! Michael! How can you do this to me? Selling human parts! Michael, were you selling human parts? Tell me it's not true," she implored, her eyes searching his face for any sign of the man she once believed she knew. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair, the weight of her gaze too much to bear. "Ada, you've got it all wrong," he began, his voice shaky as he attempted to mask his desperation with a veneer of calm. "It's not what you think. I was just trying to facilitate research." He didn't finish what he was saying, and the air was shattered by the sudden wail of police sirens. Before Michael could respond, the front door burst open and Detective Sanu, along with several officers, stormed into the room. "Michael, you're under arrest," Sanu announced authoritatively as 2 officers moved swiftly to restrain him. Michael looked around wildly, his earlier composure shattered as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "Ada, what have you done?" he whispered, betrayal written across his face. Ada watched, her emotions a complex tapestry of relief, sorrow, and determination. "I did what was right, Michael," she replied, her voice steady, but her eyes glistening with unshed tears. As the officers led Michael away, Ada felt the weight of her actions settle around her. She had turned her world upside down, but she knew it was for justice, for the victims, for Ava, and for herself. The night was fraught with tension, but Ada stood resilient amidst the chaos, a beacon of courage in the face of overwhelming darkness. The night air was suddenly chillier as she closed the door behind her, the sounds of the departing police cars marking the end of an era in their lives. Yet, as she turned from the door, a shiver ran down her spine that wasn't from the cold. Her phone buzzed. The faint vibration in her pocket startled her. Pulling out her phone, Ada saw an unknown number flashing on the screen with a new message that made her heart skip a beat. The message was brief but ominous. "The truth goes deeper than you think. Watch your back." Ada's fingers tightened around the phone, her breath catching in her throat. The stark warning sent a wave of dread through her, piercing the temporary relief of Michael's arrest. It was clear that though Michael was caught, the network he was entangled with was vast and still at large. Someone was watching, perhaps someone more dangerous than Michael ever was. Her resolve hardened as she pocketed the phone. This was far from over. If anything, her fight had just begun. She knew that she needed to delve deeper into the mystery, not just to protect herself and her family, but to ensure that no more lives were destroyed by this sinister web. As the silence of the night enveloped her, Ada was aware that the next chapter of her journey would be even more perilous. But she was ready to fight, ready to uncover the full extent of the darkness, and ready, if need be, to face whatever and whoever came next. But first, she needs to find Ava. Thank you for watching and listening to this short story. What would you do if you were Ada? Do you think Ava is still alive? Leave us a comment if you want part 2 of this story.